I'm here today to express the nation's gratitude to Justice Stephen Breyer for his remarkable career of public service and his clear-eyed commitment to making our country's laws work for its people.
I can't take this around in my job. People have come to accept this Constitution, and they've come to accept the importance of a rule of law.
That was President Biden and Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer speaking following Breyer's 2022 announcement that he was retiring. Justice Breyer is out with a new book titled Reading the Constitution, Why I Chose Pragmatism, Not Textualism. And Justice Breyer joins me now right here in the studio. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
So let me get right at the thesis of the book. You make the case in this fascinating book, Sweeping History of the Supreme Court, that justices should consider the practical consequences of a decision, such as how those affected by the decision will react. How does that work in practice?
In practice, you do your best to figure out what's going to happen. When it's most likely to play a major role is when you look at the words of the Constitution and they don't tell you the answer. Look at the words of a statute. They don't tell you the answer. And so people forever, since Chief Justice Marshall in 18, whatever it was, and Holmes and Brandeis, the other, they say, look at, somebody wrote those words. They had a reason. And you're interpreting.
Because as you know, there's an argument that a justice has to stay within the four corners of what's written on that page.
Yes.
Let's look at, for instance, in the Dobbs decision, what Justice Alito wrote. We do not pretend to know how our political system or society will respond to today's decision overruling Roe and Casey. And even if we could foresee what will happen, we would have no authority to let that knowledge influence our decision.
Really?
Why is he wrong?
Really? Because, well, let me give you a very simple case. Yeah. You may know that if you have a person has a child who's handicapped, the school board has to give that child a good education. And if the mother or father think not, they can bring a lawsuit. And if they win that lawsuit, the statute says they're entitled to their costs. Now, that was the case. Okay? Yeah. Costs. Does cost include the cost of an educational expert, $29,000? Or does it just mean legal costs? So I say, here, why don't you try this, Mr. Textualist? Say it loud. Costs. Yeah. Now, do you know the answer? Say it twice. Cost, 3 times. Cost. Doesn't tell you. So the other things that judges have always looked to, too. Who wrote those words and what did they have in mind? What was Congress trying to do? What are the consequences if you go one way rather than another way? How does it fit into a set of values that begins with the Constitution? Judges have always done that kind of thing, and it is part of the role of interpreting a statute or the Constitution.
So let me ask you, though, as a justice, when you're going through a high-profile, controversial case, are you hearing the noise outside? I mean, I guess literally the protests outside the court, but more broadly, are you gauging and thinking about how the world is going to react, how the country is going to react to your decision?
Yes, I would say that's in your mind.
And how? How do you do that? How?
And when you say, does that lead to your deciding X rather than not X?
Yeah.
Well, I can never say never, but rarely. Paul Freund, professor, great professor, constitutional law, said that the role of politics in the courts, in any court, he says, no judge should or will be moved by the temperature of the day. But every judge will be aware of the climate of the season.
So what about our time now? Where the political system seems hopelessly divided. The court seems to reflect that division.
Hard to say. It's a very complex institution. And where I think the politics that I've not seen politics in the court, and I've been a judge for 40 years. I've not seen...
You have not seen politics in the court?
Not politics in the sense in which I understood that word when I worked for Senator Kennedy, Ted Kennedy, when he was a senator.
Yep.
And I worked there for a few years. Look, you get a phone call. Mayor of Worcester, Same time.
Yeah.
Secretary of Defense. Which call will Senator Kennedy take first?
Mayor of Worcester.
Of course, it's politics. Of course. Of course. I mean, politics was how popular is this? How unpopular is that? How are we going to get the Republicans to go along, possibly, or some Democrats too?
Yeah.
How do we get all the people to the Senate meetings? Where do you want to stand when you're running for election? And no, that isn't there. That just isn't there.
So, how important it was for the Supreme Court when they ruled on the Colorado case about whether or not Trump could be on the ballot, that was a unanimous decision?
How important was it?
Yeah.
Well, don't talk about that case because you'll know more about it than me because that's after I left the court. But in general, that is a very interesting question for me because it's very tempting once you've written a dissent, even from a denial for a refusal to hear a case. Yeah. You've written the dissent, your real audience is the other judges. Mm-hmm. But if you fail at that, well, you've written it, why not let the country have the virtue of seeing your... No, said Holmes. Yeah. No, said Taft. And Taft said, it's just ego. So I always thought, well, it doesn't hurt to publish these things. It puts out another point of view. It shows people, which they would believe anyway, that not everybody's in agreement. But there's also something to be said to try to keep down the extent to which you publicly reveal the disagreement.
Would the justices ever do the kind of horse trading we see in Congress? I mean, I don't mean to be crass about this, but you have two cases before the court that could determine the presidential election, decide one that looks better for Donald Trump, the ballot access issue, one absolute immunity that doesn't serve his purposes, and they both come out, send the country a message.
I mean, look, it may be that you could find a compromise in the conference or a way of approaching things in the conference that will, in fact, solve a number of problems, and that could be one of the problems. It would be a
very powerful message to the country to see two 9-0 decisions that can't be broken down into straight political lines.
The second, Sandra O'Connor used to say this, the first unwritten rule is nobody speaks twice till everyone speaks once. Second unwritten rule, tomorrow is another day. Yeah. You and I were the greatest of allies on case one. Case two, we're absolutely at loggerheads. So,
but they are looking to how the country is going to receive these decisions.
Be careful in saying that. I want to say no. I want to say no, but I can't say no, never. Yeah. I mean, you're up there in that. You're up there in that building, which I can see a picture of down here. And in that building, you are making decisions that will affect people. Of course, knowing that a lot of people are going to read a case leads me to write, if it's my opinion to write, use certain language which is easy to understand and spend a lot of time trying to explain why.
And you don't want to contribute to the political divide in the country.
No, of course not. But of course not. But you're looking for an easy answer when I'm not being coy and saying, no, there aren't easy answers.
All right, Justice Stephen Breyer, thank you for being right here in the studio on This Week. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.